Am I on?
Oh, you're on.
Okay. So this is Kathy Atkinson. I'm the owner of Mind, Body, and Soul. And we're here at the Garden Open House at my home in Centerville. And we're just getting ready to start the Jin Shin Jyutsu mini class. Now, Jin Shin Jyutsu is a Japanese energy modality. It was just rediscovered, and I'll explain what rediscovered means, in the early 1900s by Jiro Murai. And Jiro's family was very wealthy. He was the second son of a very wealthy family, and so because he was the second son, he didn't have the same responsibilities that the first son has. The first son kind of has the responsibility to follow in Dad's footsteps. And because he was second and he was number two, he could just enjoy the freedom and enjoy the money. And so he says that he lived a very extravagant life. And one of his favorite hobbies, in fact, was to enter these eating contests. And he would eat, I think they're dumplings, and he would see how many dumplings you could eat during this set time period. Well, eventually he became very ill. So ill, in fact, that doctors had no idea what was wrong. And they basically told the family, well, you can expect him to die. We don't know what's going on. We can't help him. And so his health deteriorated to the point that they were certain he was going to pass away at any time. And so he asked his family to take him to the family property, the family cabin in the mountains, and leave him there so that he could die in peace. And then, come back in a week. And I mean, that's how bad it was. They expected within the week he was going to die. So they carried him to the family cabin. And while he was there, he says that he started thinking about these statues, these religious statues that he'd seen in different monasteries. And that he recognized that the statues were holding different poses. Some of them were holding different mudras, with, finger holds. Some of them were holding different parts of their, just holding different parts of their body. And so he began to mimic that and began holding those same poses. And during this week that he was up there, he did that basically all day long. And he said that at times he felt as though his body was on fire, that it had been thrown into a furnace. Other times he felt as though he was freezing, and he thought this was just the natural part of the dying process. He just figured this was what was going to happen as he was getting ready to pass away. But the interesting thing is that he didn't pass away. In fact, after these periods of extreme heat and extreme cold, he began to recover. He continued doing these mudras and these holds, and at the end of the 7 days, as his family came up to retrieve the body, they were amazed to see that he was on the way down the hill to meet them. And so he began this real intense study of what he had been doing, and he began working on other people holding different parts of the body. And during this time he was meditating a lot and drawing out what he was feeling in his body. And he would go to an area like a park, but not a park, where there were people that weren't exactly wealthy. And he would ask, who here has eye problems? I'm working with eye problems today. And so he would get anybody that has eye problems, and he would start working. He would listen to pulses. He would look at their body, and he would start harmonizing their energy pathways. And then the next, another day he might go and say, so who here has problems with digestion, or who here has problems with constipation, or who here has problems with gallbladder? And that's the project he would be working on for that period of time as he was studying. And he ended up working with some members of the royal family, the emperor's family, and healed them, and became the personal physician to the emperor's family. And as a result, was told by the emperor, whatever you want in my kingdom, as far as, for payment, it's yours. You can have it, whatever you desire. And what he asked for was access to the imperial library, which only the emperor and his family has access to. But it's the ancient records of Japan, and that as far back, and how far back that could be. Well, as he's studying these ancient records, what he discovered was what he had been doing with the safety, he called them safety energy locks, different places on the body where he felt, I don't want to say blockage, but where he felt some energy that had accumulated and it wasn't flowing the way it should have been. And so he discovered that this modality was being used before the birth of Moses, before the birth of Muhammad, and before the Kojiki, which is the Japanese record of ancient things. It had been used for a very long time. And that, of course, was quite revealing to him. Then we end up with Mary Burmeister, who is a Japanese American, who goes to Japan, and while she's there, she's staying with a family, and Jiro Murai finds out that she's staying with this family, and he comes to visit this family because he knows them, and she thinks that he's there to visit the family, but he's really there to see her. And he invites her to come and learn from him, learn this modality. But the way he does it is quite interesting. He says to her, "So, would you like to take a gift back to America?" "Sure, okay." Well, the gift was Jin Shin Jyutsu, and so she began a real in-depth study, taking classes from him to learn this. And at that point, if I remember correctly, she was the only woman who was taking classes. The other people that would come were very well-respected men of position, and so now you've got this, little 5-foot-something woman taking classes with a lot of well-esteemed men. But when she ended up falling in love and moved back to the United States with her husband, and didn't really do much with Jin Shin Jyutsu for a while until the word kind of leaked out that we've got this lady in our community, and people started sending people to her that needed help. And then she began teaching classes in California, and then moved, and it's kind of spread all over. But one of the things that she taught, that she brought to Jin Shin Jyutsu, is the finger holds. Now, in holistic medicine, most of us realize that we've got different energy pathways in the body, different energy systems in the body. So in Jin Shin Jyutsu, there is main central, which goes up the back and down the front, primarily right here in the center, okay? Then we've got left and right mediator, which again goes up the back and down the front, but it's on the left and right side, so you'll have a left mediator and a right mediator. There's left and right supervisor, which again, up the back and down the front, but it's crossing as it goes. So I'm sorry, supervisor is up and down. Main central, left and right supervisor, left and right mediator that crosses back and forth. I don't remember if I mixed those two up. There's also organ flows. So the pathways of energy that Jiro was recognizing when he was meditating. There's also Chinese meridians that you're probably familiar with. There's the aura system. There's pathways of energy that we use in foot zone therapy. That was discovered by Dr. William Fitzgerald in the early 1900s as well. He was an ear, nose, and throat specialist, a surgeon. And those are pathways of energy that just go up and down. But all of these pathways go through our fingers and toes. So when you hold fingers, you harmonize various pathways, okay? Now, in the handout, and for those of you who are watching Facebook Live, you can find this handout on my website under energy work, and then Jin Shin Jyutsu, and then you'll see emotions and attitudes. So we're going to talk about the difference between an emotion and an attitude. Now, emotions are natural. They're a part of life. Excuse me. Something happens and we naturally feel the emotion. We feel it, we process it, we let it go. But sometimes something happens, we feel that emotion, and instead of letting it go, we let it affect us. We let it affect our behavior. When our emotion begins to affect our behavior, that's when it becomes an attitude. So let's say, for example, a loved one passes away. You naturally feel grief, right? Grief is a natural emotion to someone that you love leaving. But when you let that emotion of grief affect how you treat other people, so let's say, okay, so-and-so passed away, I am never going to love again because I don't ever want to feel that pain. And we've heard people say that before, right? Or someone passes away and so you become super protective of your kids because you don't ever want anything to happen to them. So they're not allowed to go to sleepovers. They're not allowed to, they're 12 years old and they still can't cross the street by themselves, or, however that manifests, okay? Now that grief is affecting your behavior, and so that becomes an attitude. So in the handout, there are 5 different finger holds. And within the finger hold, there's also a quickie. So for example, worry. The quickie for worry is by holding your thumb. Now, if you're worried, you want to be calmed down, right? You want to feel peace. Well, have you ever noticed how babies just naturally suck their thumb because it brings them comfort? Okay? And that's the neat thing about Jin Shin Jyutsu, is that many of the things that they teach us in Jin Shin Jyutsu, once you're aware of them, you notice that people do them naturally. It's just almost ingrained to do some of these things. Now, I'm going to just talk about worry for a minute, because this particular finger hold, the quickie for worry is holding the thumb. But when worry, so that's the emotion of worry, hold your thumb. When worry has become an attitude, then it's a little more in depth to get rid of it. And you're holding your thumb, your middle finger, which is for anger, okay? And which is kind of interesting, because when you're angry, what finger do you like to, people sometimes hold up? And then the other one that you'll hold is your pinky finger. Now, the pinky finger is for pretense. Have you ever noticed when people are pretending to be proper or putting on airs that the pinky comes up? Okay? So when the emotion of worry has developed into an attitude, those are the 3 fingers that you want to hold, but it affects other things in your body. So guilt, depression, preoccupation, hate, obsession, anxiety, self-protection, a few other things. But then it also goes on tension in head, shoulders, lung. Okay? An imbalance in the stomach and spleen energy pattern, or when you have to sit a lot. Now, you may have noticed when you're sitting that sometimes you just start naturally holding your thumb, which is kind of interesting. So if you notice with the handout, if you notice, I'm feeling a little bit worried, just hold your thumb. Now, to do that, what you're going to do is you're going to just put your hand out, and then I'm going to put this down for a minute.
Does it matter right or left?
It does not matter left or right which one you start with, because you're going to end up with both. I always start with my left hand, because then that way I know when I get to my right hand, I don't have to remember, oh, have I done my left hand yet? If you don't start with the same one all the time, then sometimes I get mixed up. So I always start with my left hand, but you can start with whatever hand you want. And I'm going to set this down for just a second. So you're going to put your hand out, and then you're just going to wrap your other fingers around. Okay? And you're just going to hold your thumb. Now, you're not squeezing. You're just gently holding it. Okay? No, not a lot of pressure. And you can do it comfortably. You don't need to have it holding out like that the whole time. So that was just for demonstration purposes. So you can put it in your lap and just relax. Now you're going to continue holding it. Okay? And while you're holding it, you're going to focus on your breath. Just nice, gentle breathing. Don't need to do this great big deep breaths. Don't need to do that. You're just going to focus on your breathing and pay attention to your breath. Okay? Pay attention to whether or not your breath goes to here or to here or to here. Okay? Just pay attention to your breathing. And what you'll notice eventually is that you're going to start to feel a little pulse. The pulse will be in the bottom of the thumb. You might feel it there, or you might feel it in the part of the hand that's touching the bottom of the thumb. And you'll feel this pulse that sometimes will feel a little bit erratic. But you'll want to continue holding it until that pulse becomes smooth and harmonized. Once it becomes harmonized, you want to go ahead and continue holding while you're focusing on your breathing. And maybe breathe, another 5 times, another 7 times. And a full breath is an exhale and then an inhale. That's 1 breath. Exhale, inhale. That's 2 breaths. And so after you've found the pulse is harmonized, meaning it's nice and smooth, then breathe, 5 or 7 or 10 or 36 times, okay? And then you can move to the next finger. So some people have asked me, what do I do if I don't feel a pulse? What if I never feel a pulse? That's okay. If you don't feel a pulse, just hold it for about 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, and then move to the next one. Okay? Now the interesting thing is that your body's energy pathways understand what they're supposed to be doing, even though sometimes they become disharmonized. So the more frequently you harmonize your energy pathway, the longer it's going to stay harmonized. So if you hold fingers every day, okay, eventually they're going to harmonize more quickly, and they're going to stay harmonized longer. Does that make sense? Okay. So with Jin Shin Jyutsu is a really easy way that you can bring balance. You can do it anytime. Nobody needs to know that you're doing energy work. You can hold fingers anytime, any place, and no one will ever know that you're bringing energy and you're bringing harmony to your energy pathways. You're bringing harmony to yourself. Okay. Now, when you see a Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioner, they're not going to be holding your fingers. Sometimes they might, but there are 26 safety energy locks that are located on both sides of on the left and right side of the body. Okay, they'll be holding those safety energy locks along with fingers, or possibly toes, or the coccyx, or something. There's another one right here too. Okay, so they'll hold those, or they'll hold them in a specific pathway or in a specific pattern to bring harmony. Usually I'll listen to pulses before a Jin Shin Jyutsu session. Well, not usually, always. I'll listen to pulses. I'll kind of observe the body as you're laying on the table. And it's usually about 50 minutes, roughly. Sometimes it goes a little bit longer, but 50 minutes is about all the body is ready to do at one time. You can do Jin Shin Jyutsu sessions twice a day. You can do them daily. Most people don't come in always. Whoops, sorry, that was loud. Typically, people don't come in twice a day, daily, all the time. They might do an intensive session where they want to go for a week, going daily. But generally, it's just maybe once a week they come in for a session. And I've had people talk to me about how Jin Shin Jyutsu has helped with their breathing, how it's helped with their menstrual cycles, how it's just brought a sense of peace and balance and grounding. And so they found great benefit in Jin Shin Jyutsu. So if you're interested in a Jin Shin Jyutsu session, just give me a call. You'll find information on my website as far as pricing and stuff like that. But hopefully, with the self-help, you've been able to just learn some tips and tricks on ways to bring balance to your heart and to your body. So now we can, thank you.